Item: SCP-772. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. All SCP-772 specimens are to be contained in their 18 meters x 18 meters x 9 meters enclosure, which is contained within a 20 meter x 20 meters x 10 meters hermetically sealed chamber located at Sector 07. A maximum capacity of 15 specimens per this enclosure is advised, as exceeding this number could result in heightened levels of SCP-772 aggression. This chamber is fitted with a pneumatic fluoridated aluminum dispenser that may be activated remotely if an emergency euthanization of SCP-772 is necessary, resulting in the suffocation and incineration of all SCP-772 specimens. This emergency euthanization mechanism and all related equipment must undergo routine maintenance checks to ensure adequate performance. The interval between maintenance checks is not to exceed 7 days. SCP-772 eggs are to be stored in a well-lit freezer at a temperature no higher than -10 C, 14 F. Surplus unwanted eggs are to be incinerated immediately and the resulting debris must be examined for any signs of life. If signs of life are present, a second round of incineration is authorized. The same procedure should be applied to all expired and needed subjects who are, or could possibly be, SCP-772 hosts. Note: personnel intending to use SCP-772 for purposes not qualifying as research-oriented must obtain O5 authorization. Dr. Woodside. Description: SCP-772 is a wasp of unknown species, superficially resembling members of the Megarissa genus. A mature adult is typically 60 centimeters in length, from head to abdomen, excluding antennae and ovipositor. This barbed ovipositor, reaching a length of up to 70 centimeters, is used to penetrate its host and deposit anywhere from 5 to 20 eggs. Eggs are typically 6 centimeters long and 2.5 centimeters in diameter. SCP-772 is meticulous and almost surgical during oviposition. It makes an incision no longer than 3 centimeters, and the host is paralyzed and or comatose for several hours until the wound can heal sufficiently. Injected along with the eggs is a polydnavirus uniquely adapted to suppress the immune system of mammals, analogous to the smaller parasitoid wasps which do the same to their caterpillar hosts. Female specimens of SCP-772 pose a significant safety hazard, as the ovipositor is extremely sharp and maneuverable. When threatened, females will use this organ as a weapon and stab the offender repeatedly. While these wounds are not always fatal, they have been reported to be acutely painful, and cases of bone penetration have been documented. Although caution should be exercised around all specimens of SCP-772, males lack the ovipositor which serves as the female's weapon and method of host infiltration. Females are capable of reproducing asexually via thelyticus parthenogenesis and will do so in the absence of males. SCP-772 requires a warm, dark, nutrient-rich cavity in which to lay its eggs. It habitually deposits eggs in the abdominal subcutaneous fat of large mammals, but has been known to utilize subcutaneous fat in other regions, including the shoulder, back, hip, thigh, and data expunged. See extensive testing conducted on D-Class personnel in document. Additional clearance required. SCP-772 eggs have an incubation period of 4 to 12 days. And length of incubation period is speculated to share an inversely proportional relationship with levels of host stress hormone. Upon hatching, SCP-772 larvae begin their consumption of host tissue, gradually working their way into the depths of the host's body. The larvae may be easily mistaken for abscesses tumors, but as SCP-772 progresses away from the hypodermis, it appears to the observer that said abscesses tumors are diminishing of their own accord. SCP-772 was discovered on the 4th of 19. When Professor, a noted entomologist of university, was found disemboweled and partially devoured on his bathroom floor. Several adult SCP-772s were found feeding on his remains and that of his 2 cats, indicating that SCP-772 is carnivorous even after pupation. Interviews with his colleagues revealed that Professor had apparently returned from the Azores Islands about 2 weeks before his death. He did not contact anyone following his arrival in the UK and did not return to the university. Professor had been conducting research in remote areas of the Azores for months at a time and had little contact with anyone during his absence. He recorded data and personal reflections in a series of journals, 2 of which were found on site. Relevant and/or noteworthy excerpts have been transcribed and included for post-mortem analysis.